Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I'm good, thank you. So we're gonna do lab 8 today. If you can go into Canvas and download it. We'll start in a couple minutes, okay? Let me get my REPL open. So before we start, do you have any questions?
Hey, Professor, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I do have some question. We can do it after class or not, but it's for the quiz review. I just need help on one of the problems, or like I'm just not understanding it.
Okay, let me go to that. Which questions do you have?
Let me look it up. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out which one I did because I did some today before class.
Okay, no problem. We can address it afterwards.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier for me to do it after class, and then I can tell you which problem I'm having trouble on.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Oh,
so
I got it.
I will. Okay.
It's number 12. I'm just trying to figure out how to do it.
Okay, let me double check here because I might have uploaded a different one. I'm looking at my file and it just says it's the differences between arithmetic and so. Oh, that's the homework, right?
Yes. Yeah, the question is like, in a class, a teacher wants to select 3 boys and 3 girls for a spelling competition in a class of 20 students.
Okay, so yeah. It says on here, it's at the carnival, the popcorn, cotton candy, pretzel, and 5 types of drink. That's number 12.
Oh, for me, that one's number 14.
I just downloaded the quiz to review. Did you get that from Canvas?
Oh, I know what I did. One of my answers accidentally changed it to a different number.
Oh, okay.
It's actually 10 for me. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so for number 10, yeah, 3 boys and 3 girls with the spelling competition out of, so you, okay. First, you're gonna choose 3 out of 20. Remember the choose formula?
Yeah.
Yeah, so once you calculate all of that out after choosing 3 of 20, then you would find for both boys and girls, since it's the same, then remember how we're choosing multiple options in the next level. So once you have the result from choosing 3 out of the 20, then you apply the product.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Product law, yeah. So if
Product law?
you go back, if you go back to the exercises, we have something similar to that.
Yeah, no, I
But
was trying to even do the exercise and I couldn't understand
yeah,
it.
I will walk you over it after the lab. Okay.
Yeah, I don't even mind doing the one that we did in class about 2 weeks ago, so I can understand that as well. You know, I don't mind
Yeah.
I don't mind doing it here, like, because we already did it, so I would want to have practice on my own on the quiz review.
I'll walk
Okay.
you through it after the lab.
Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. So, any question? Okay, so let's talk about the lab that we have to do today. Let me go into screen share right now. So let me go back to my modules. So we are doing lab 8, and as Mario mentioned, we have an assignment for homework. And so if you want to stick around afterwards, I'm going to go over one of the questions. So, okay, so today we're going to do sequence and series. And it's pretty straightforward as far as the lab document. We're first going to start with arithmetic sequence, where we're going to add a constant to each of the previous value to get the next term in the sequence. And so the difference between the consecutive terms is always the same, and we know that that will be our difference, or our D there. The A here stands for the first term value, and then the N is just the position of the term, where that is in the sequence. Okay, like the first one would be N is 1, and so forth. So in exercise 1, if you're given a sequence 2, 5, 8, 11, 14, right? In this sequence, 2 is the starting term of the series, then the common difference is going to be 3. Okay, so if we start at 2, then we just add 3, we get to the next one, add 3, we get to the next one, and so forth. So when you plug that in, right, you would have the A is 2, and the next one also the A is 2. So for every single one, you're going to have A is 2 there. And your difference, if you take 5, subtract 2, you get a 3. 8, subtract 5, you get a 3. So you would multiply that by 3. So we simply just apply the equation and we plug in the value to determine your T of n. Okay. So that kind of give you an overview on what we covered as the first part of our last lecture. In example 1, you have a very simple program in C++. So let me open it up in REPL so you can see it better. So in this program, what we have is we have a function, and inside that, for the argument, we're using A for the first term, like our equation, D for the difference, and N is your term position. Now, in this, what we want is from our function, we're going to return A plus N minus 1 times D. And you can see that this would be the equation that we just discussed. So in the main, what we can do is we would then start to declare our variable a. So int a, and we assign it a value. So 2. And for the difference for int d, we would have it as 5. So 2 plus 5 is going to give you 7 for the next one, right? So the first term is a, and the second term would be 7, and then you're just going to keep adding 5. Now, our program is going to utilize the variable int n to determine the fifth term value, and then it's going to see out. So when we see out, when we display that after the text, we're going to call on our function nth of AP, and here is our ADN being passed. Okay, so when we run this, what you have is it simply state that the fifth term of the series is 22. So in this one, nothing too fancy. We just simply implemented the equation inside the function, and then we call on that function. And within the main, we declare our variables that would apply to the function itself. So very simple. So after you take a look at the program, you can enter it into an IDE. Let me close that file, sorry. Then what we'll do is we are going to answer the questions, okay? And for A, we just want to calculate, and we want to verify if our program is giving us the right output. That's what we're doing. Like I mentioned before, the program is only as good as it is the one who created it, right? The programmer. So we wanted to make sure that we validate the value. So when you approach the arithmetic progression, a way that we can implement it in C++ is to create a program like this. You can simply write a function, implement the equation. Now notice that we have to use the STL accordingly. So just wanted to make sure you implement the header files like algorithm and IOStream. So in question A, what we want to do is we want to specify or calculate the first term to the fifth term. So A, we already were given A. We are given A at, it's as 2, and our difference is 5. And we know that we have to determine T of 5, or T of n, and n is 5. So for the first one, T of 1, you would take the A, which is 2, plus the n, which is 1, as you plug in 1 here, minus 1 times 5, which gives you 2. We already got that from our problem. Number 2, when n is 2, then you plug in 2 for n. So 2 plus 2 minus 1 times 5, which gives you 7. T of 3, 2 plus 3 minus 1 times 5, which gives you 12. And you would continue to do that to get from the first term through the fifth term. And we wanted to check to see if our fifth term is the proper output, right? Like the program. So my program stated that it is 22 at the fifth term. So we wanted to verify that with our calculation. And the whole purpose of this is to show you how you can create the program that would represent arithmetic progression. Now let's say that we want to determine the 20th term in our arithmetic progression, in our arithmetic sequence. We would then apply the same formula for exercise 1b, T of n equal to a plus n minus 1 times d. And so when you plug in 20, sorry, I had it as 3. When you plug in 20, you would have 2 as a plus 20 minus 1 times 5. Okay. So that would give us 19 times 5 plus 2. So you can calculate that and then provide the answer. So using this formula, we're able to determine any of the term value given our first term and our difference. And that's what we need. Okay. So to reiterate, for exercise 1A, we simply just calculate using the formula each of the term and to get from the first through the fifth in our sequence. Then for 1B, we plug in n is 20 to calculate the value at the 20th term. Now, the purpose of this is we then would edit our program, and instead of using 5, we can then change up the 5 for the n value to a 20. So we would take out the 5, put in the 20 for n, and we would run the program to see if your calculation for 1B would match up with the result. So here, for the next one, what I do is I can change, instead of the 5th term, I would go ahead and put in the 20th term. And then I would run it. So it tells me that on the 20th term of, that should be this, not the, sorry, that should be a sequence. In our sequence, that should be 97. Given that A is 2 and 5 is D. So for part 1C, what we want to do is we want to edit our program. Instead of using 5 for n, we would change that to 20. Run the program, and we want to verify that our calculation for 1B would match up with 1C. Okay. So if you calculate it correctly, it should match up, right? Any question? And what I want you to see from doing all of this is that when you have a program like this, right, when we approach the algorithm, we want to test the algorithm and make sure that it's going to give us the proper output regardless. Okay. Now, when you started to see issues, possibly that you have logical error, or in the program, maybe you're implementing it. So let's say that if we implement recursions or something that would cause it to run into issues where it's not going to give us any result, it's going to halt, then we have to take a look at how we would fix that program. So when you implement algorithm, especially for something like this sequence, what we want to do is we wanted to test it and make sure that it will work with a larger sequence, or, so different scale of sequence. And then after you verify that your program is outputting the same result as B, when you change it to 20 for N, then what we will do is we will edit it again and get to see if it's going to work with a different sequence. So in this one, you notice that your first term is 1. So then when you change your program, you would want to specify that A is equal to 1. And to determine RD, you simply take the 8, subtract the 1, or the 15, subtract the 8, which gives you 7. Okay. So in that, when you change up your program, you go to the main function and you would modify the values. Now we want to go to the 15th term. So again, we will have to change our n value to 15. And that can quickly be done once we have the program written. So here, as I left off in part C, what I will do is I change A to 1, I change D to 7, and I change N to 15. Then we run the program. And it tells me that on the 15th term, the 15th term of the sequence is 99. Okay. So for D, we simply look at the sequence. We can determine A. We can determine the D by subtracting the second term with the first term, or the third term with the second term. It should be exactly the same as the result. So once we have that, we would plug those values into our program, edit it, and then run it and take a screenshot. So that would be easy. I already state that there, so I'm just going to copy it and then paste it down for E. So when you change up your program, you have to plug these values in, where A is 1, D is 7, and N is 15. And that would represent a different sequence. So we can see that this program would work with different arithmetic progression or the arithmetic sequence. Now, so let's say that I want to jazz this program up. I wanted to make it where I'm able to print every single value. How would I do that? Let's say that if my N is 15, and I wanted to show every single term from the 1st through the 15th. what can I do to make my program do that along with showing the 15th term? Any idea?
Could you use a for loop to display
Yeah,
your time?
yeah, you can use a for loop. And some of you will venture, and for loop will be the easiest because you can loop it up to, right, at the 15 terms. So you already got the end there. So in the second part of your for loop, you can go up to the max, which is 15. That's an excellent idea. You can venture into thinking maybe we can add a while or do while something. But for loop will be the best, right? Because we would specify. Now you can have it loop and print each time. So with the for loop, you just have a C out and then it's going to print. And you can format your C out to print it a certain way to make it look like it's a sequence with a curly brace. Okay. Or what you can do is you can print it in each line showing, you know, each of the term, like T of N is this. So there are a few things that we can do to make it more clear for the user. But the point in this is to show you how you can implement function like this using your equation. Okay. Any question? Okay. So in exercise 1, and most of all of these programs are very simple. I chose them because I want to make sure that you can read it and understand it. No point of giving you a super difficult one with, you know, different components, classes, and where you won't be able to read it and understand it. And eventually when you take programming classes, you will get to that level. This class only requires CIS5, so I just assumed that you would know the basic level programming. So we can write this program at much more advanced level, right? Using data structure, definitely. To give it a little bit more jazz, to make it look nicer, to organize your data, to make it definitely more efficient. But in this, it's really, you know, we're not even iterating. So it's gonna be like O of one task. Okay. Question. All right, let's move on to number 2. So now we're gonna move into the sum of our sequence. And in this, just to recap from our lecture, we talked about arithmetic series. And series is a sum of the terms of the sequence. So you would add up all the values in that sequence to get a sum, and that would represent the series. So in the lecture, we talk about Gauss formula or Gauss trick, where we would take the number of terms, we divide it by 2, then multiply that by the first, add it with the last term. So in example 2, we are gonna create a program in C++ that's gonna give us the arithmetic sum or the series. Okay, so let me walk you through the program so you know what it is. And for, you know, for basic programming classes like this, REPL is like the best because you can save everything on the cloud. You can also link it to your GitHub. You can download your file, and in the case, even if you output files, it organizes it for you there. It's free to use as long as you have internet connection. So when I teach C++, I use REPL. I don't bother with Visual Studio because sometimes students don't have that program installed and it just create problems. So, you know, and you can use REPL for other languages too, just to let you know. All right. So in example 2, you have the same. We have algorithm and IO stream header using namespace std. That's just standard for C++. And we also have a function called sum of AP. And in this, we use variable a, d, and n. And they are all integers. So in our function, what we want is we want to implement a for loop. We just talked about this. And what this for loop will do is it's going to give us the running sum. So as it loops, it's going to take that value, it's going to add it, right? And so at the end, what we want is we want to return the sum, the running sum, all the numbers added. And in our main, then we can assign the variable values. So your n is 5, your a is 1, and your d is 2. Then we would do a display, cout, we set arithmetic sequence sum, and we call on the function that we previously defined. Then we finish. So when you run this, right, it shows that my sum is 25. If I start at 1, right, and my difference is 2, so I would have 1, 3, 5, and so on, and I added those values up, I should get a 25 for the 1st through the 5th. Okay. So when you look at this program, again, it's using a function, and in it we did have iteration here. So we have a loop that will add up the value. And that's the easiest implementation in my opinion. So in question A, again, we are going to look at the sequence to determine our 5th term. And if you do it manually, right, you have to add each one. The cool part about using the computing system and the programming side is that you can have it all automated. Create a loop and it's done. So our A is 1, that's given in the program. Our D is 2, that's given in the program. Then we apply our formula. T of n is a plus n minus 1 times d. So for each one, we want to find out the value for each of the term in the sequence from the 1st through the 5th, because it tells us to find up to the 5th. Okay. And that's what the program does, right? It iterates through, so it gets each of the value and then it adds it up. So we have 1 plus 1 minus 1 times 2. So you get a 0 here times a 2, that's a 0. So your first term that's validated, it's at 1. Then at term 2, you would have 1 plus 1 times 2. So you would have a 3 and then a 5 and so on. Any question? Then we use Gauss trick to calculate our sum. I don't know why I put this. Oh, last term. Sorry, that was a sleepy moment when I was typing that up. Okay, so we have A is 1. We have the number of terms is 5. And for our term 5. So t of 5, that would be 1 plus 5 minus 1 times 2. That will be 9. Okay, so our fifth term is 9, I should say. Yeah. Then we would apply the formula. So we would take 5, which is the n value, divided by 2 times the first term, which is 1, plus the last term, which is 9, which gives us 25. So for quiz and test, right, as you see that in your quiz 2 review, you are also required to know how to calculate the sum of the arithmetic sequence. Any question? So once we verify that our value that we calculated matches up with this, that's good. That means that we're right. The program is accurate. Then we want to test it with a different sequence. Okay. So for C, it tells you to edit the program to calculate the sum of another sequence. Determine the partial sum for the above sequence in which n is 30. Provide the screen capture and the code. So when you edit, I put down the note here that you would use A is 4. And the D, we can take 14, subtract 4, we get a 10, or 24, subtract 14, we also get a 10. So your D is 10. And then your N is 30. Okay. So for 10 and 30. So we can go into here and we would change it up to 4. Oops, sorry, N is 30. A is 4. And D is 10. So we're going to go ahead and run this. Okay. And it gives us 4,470. Once you edit and run the program, take a screen capture. You can paste it directly into the document, or if you have a separate document, that's fine for all your screen capture. So you don't have to upload many times. Any question? So when you create a program like this, right, the easiest thing is to be able to write functions. And you can have a function to generate the sequence, a function to calculate the sum, right? Even a function to print. So, and then we can just call on the function. And that kind of break up our program into subparts, so it's a lot easier to troubleshoot, especially when you have much larger scale program. Okay. Now, when I teach Python, not that only we define functions, we actually use modules. And if you take Java, you know, I spend a little bit of time talking about packages. So that kind of make it where you would have all these little sub programs that you can reuse So let's say that we would implement something with arithmetic series. Down the line, we just bring in that module instead of rewriting. You don't want to write 7,000 lines. You want to write a short program that call libraries or modules or packages. Okay, that's the whole point. Streamline the process and make your life easier. Okay, questions? Okay, so as we complete the edit of a different sequence to get the sum of that sequence, okay, we see that when we determine the partial sum for C, so first you need to find T of 30, the 30th term. You plug it into the equation that we use in the first exercise. So 4 plus 30 minus 1 times 10, A plus N minus 1 times D. That's the formula. You get 294. Then you would find the arithmetic sum by using Gauss trick, and that would be 30 divided by 2 times 4 plus 294. Okay, so that would be 15 times 298. That way we can verify to see if our program output matches up with our calculation. And you know that, if there's error, that possibly because maybe you had syntax, logical error, or it's more of a human error. The computer rarely, so it would do exactly what you instructed to do. So, but we can see that we can implement that program for different sequence as well, as long as we specify or assign specific value for a different sequence as A, D, and the N. Okay, any question? Okay. So we want to find the sum, calculate it, and then make sure that you check that with the program. Then we can move to example 3. And in example 3, I want to show you a way that we can write a program where we would take input for these values, right? They're just variables, so super easy. We can create a program to calculate arithmetic series based on input. Okay. And in this one, nothing too special. It has a loop. So let me open up in REPL. So we have these file headers. So include IO stream here, algorithm, because we're using equations. Now, the reason, do you understand why they're using double here? Why are we using double there? Possibly because the user might input a very large value, right? So we want to use double, or what if. Now here, what we can do is we can use the data type to really control how the data is stored there. So here we can specify double in the case that the user input thousands or million as a number. A D, N, I, sum, and J. Okay. We would see out, enter the starting value, which is your A. Take that, store that in A. So C in A. Enter the difference, which is D. C in D. Display, enter the term, and then we would do a C in N. Now, here, what we can do is we would have to have a loop because we wanted to have a running sum. We would add each of the value to get the sum. So we would start at the first term, right? At that sequence, that's the first term. So int A is going to be equal to A, I is going to be equal to A. And I is going to go up to N times D plus A. Okay. And why not just leave it as N? Why do we want here to implement N times D plus A? Why does this have to be here? Anybody know? So A is the first term. N is, why can't I just go up to N? Well, here I specify that the index is going to start at the first term. And it's going to iterate through, it's going to loop through, right, up to the N is your N value times D plus A, not minus 1, because we want to go up to the value of the last term, the last term. Okay. Then we are going to increment based on the difference. So this is a little bit different than what you've seen how the equation is used. And I want to show you this so you can see that this is also a different technique. Okay. You can build that into the for loop. And yes, you can have it separate. You can add it in there. You can, so it's how we use the equation with the variable, right? So here, when I test this, so let's say in our exercise, we have to test it. Our starting term is at 3. Our difference is 6. And we're going to go up to the 10 term. So we're going to go 3, 6, and then enter the term. So we're going to do 10. Okay. Now, it shows, unlike the other one, it shows us each of the term here. So we have 3, 9, 15, 21, 27, and so forth. And the sum is the final output, which is 300. Okay, any question? So you input the program into your IDE, into an IDE, and then run it. Then you would test it with what the question has required. So it tells you to test the starting term is 3, difference is 6, and the N is 10. Then take a screen capture. Then we want to check our program by calculation. So use the equation to determine the arithmetic sequence and sum. Given the starting term A is 3, difference or D is 6, and term or N is 10. So I started a few for you here, and then you can keep going. So we want to go all the way up to 10. then we want to find the sum, right? So our sum would be 10 divided by 2 times first term is 3 plus the last term is for you to find out. And if we rely on this, that will be 57. So 9 times 6, 54, 57. That's correct. Okay. So 5 times 60 is your sum. Any question? And as you take a look at the program, you will find that the equation is implemented in this for loop. This one didn't have any separate function. It's everything is built into the main. Okay. So, and we use user input. So you would prompt the user to enter the value, and then it's going to record that value stored into each of the variable. The variable is then being used in the for loop, and your starting index value is going to be A because that's the first term, right? It's going to go to the last. It's going to increment it by the difference. And then it will add it up. So your I here is really represent each of the term value. Okay, so it does the running sum of I. And then it's going to see out. Okay. So for part B, all I want is this, maybe a couple sentences, okay? A short paragraph if you like. Explain the implementation of our equations, this equation in example 3. So leaving this class, you should be able to write, right? Based on this, you see how it's written. We should be able to write simple arithmetic progression program, a geometric sequence program, geometric series program. Any question for exercise 3? Okay. So 3, complete part A and part B. For the next one, this one is going to cover geometric sequence and series. So in geometric sequence, and unlike the arithmetic, we're going to multiply the previous number with the R or the common ratio to get to the next term value. So we start with A, then we multiply A with R to get the next term, then multiply that term with R again. So you have AR squared, AR third, okay, and so on and so on. So to calculate any of the term value, we simply have used this equation. T of n is equal to A times R, raise it to the n minus 1. Okay, and if we test it with the first term, since n minus 1, 1 minus 1 would be 0, so you would have A. Then to find the sum of the geometric sequence, right, we can manually add everything up, but that takes a long time, especially if you have a very lengthy sequence. We want to quickly find the sum by using this equation. Okay. So in the next program, we will calculate the sum for your geometric sequence. So let's look at 4. So in this one, we have a function, sum of GP, and we use int A, int R, and int N. Since we have a for loop, we need to initialize our sum at 0. And as the loop, we are going to have a running sum. So sum is sum plus A. And A is A times R. Okay. As you would see that in the description or the information right above the program. Then we're going to return sum from that function. In the main, we declare A and assign it a value. Our first term starts at 1. Our R is 3 and our N is 7. Then when we see out, when we just output, we want to call the function, and that completes our program. Okay. So here it outputs 1093 as the sum for my geometric progression. So we would input the program into an IDE and run it. Take a screenshot for me. For part A, we would do the calculation to find, right, each of the term in that sequence up to 7. It tells you that here. So for the first term, I simply take 1, which is A. You see that here in the program, times 3, and raise it to the power of 1 minus 1, which is 0. And 3 to the 0 gives you 1. So 1 times 1 is a 1. And then the second term, when n is 2, plug 2 in for n. So 1 times 3 to the power of 2 minus 1, which is 1 inside the parentheses. So 1 times 3 to the first, which gives me 3. T of 3, when n is 3, then you plug n in as 3. Then you have 1 times 9, which is 9. So we want to go all the way up to 7. Sorry. Then after we get to 7, then we would calculate the sum for 7 terms using the formula. So I have a times 1 divided by r to the n divided by 1 minus r. Okay. Then I plug in 7 for n. So 1 times 1 divided by 3, and r is r3 from the program. So 3 is r, n is 7. So we want to add up from the first through the 7th term divided by 1 minus 3. Okay. And at this point, we would have the sum for our geometric progression. Okay, any question relating to number 4, part A? Okay, so all I want you to do there is to determine the sequence and the sum, and we can apply the formula or the equations to calculate those. For part B, what we're going to do is we are going to modify the program. We're going to use A is going to be 2, R is 1/4, and your N is 8. Then we're going to run the program, take a screen capture, and I put here note. Remember to check data type when editing the program. Why? Because we have a fraction. Okay, so what data type should I use? Float, right? Okay, so for part B, you can change up this to 2, this to 1/4, and change the value for n, but make sure you check the data type. And as you type it here, you also need to verify the type up here. Otherwise, it's going to throw an error. Okay, so make sure your data type matches. Okay. Because if I leave it as int, right, it's just going to give me whole number. I can't use 1/4. So common ratio can be any value. It could be any type of data. It could be whole number. It could be a fraction. So when we're using a fraction, we got to make sure that we type it as a fraction. Any question with 4B? No question. Okay. So for 4C, what we're going to do is, again, let me move this to the next page so you can see all together. So for 4C, we would use the equation to determine the geometric sequence and sum of 4B. Just like what we did before, right? So as it is a different sequence, you have A, let me copy this down here. You have A is 2, R is 1/4, and N is 8. Then you would use the equation and plug it in. So I would have A times R and raise it to N minus 1. So you keep doing it until you get to the 8th term. Okay, and here we would do again 2 times 1/4. And then here you would plug in the value for your N. Then when you calculate the sum, you can use the formula that's given at the top, or I had typed it up also here. You can use that. Let me finish this so it's not just hanging out there. Okay. So for our sum, we can plug in the value for A, which is 2, times 1 divided by 1/4, and then raise that to the power of N. So we wanted to go up to 8. Divided by 1 minus. Okay.
Could we change the fraction into a decimal if we like?
Yeah, you can leave it in decimal. So when you run that program, when you change it to float, right? Because we didn't control how the format of that float is, so you might get a huge, you're gonna get decimal. So yeah. Yeah, plug it into the calculator. Decimal is fine with me. Yeah, in the previous semester when I did this exercise with the students, I started with the float and then I have them convert it to integer. I did it the other way around this time so I can show you how, we can apply any common ratio. We don't have to have it whole number. The world is not just about, integers, right? We have all other type of numbers. So I want to show you that, and when you write the program, you would consider, especially when you're asking the user to input, right? How that data is going to be typed and how that's incorporated with the program.
Couldn't we also use double or no?
I'm sorry. Yeah, you can use double, but double just gives you a larger length as a container.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I had my What I did was I used a parentheses for the bottom, Carlos. This is also a parenthesis. Yeah, I can remove the parentheses so you can see. I do that for the students, for in general, when we type it into the calculator, using the parenthesis applied to the appropriate. Okay, yeah. So I just removed the parentheses, so yeah. See? Other questions? Okay, so after you calculate the sum and create or calculate the sequence or each term in that sequence, we want to explain how the program implemented the algorithm, right? What's the procedure of the program? That's what I'm asking for. What is it really doing to really give you this geometric progression and its sum? So when you look at the program from top down, right, explain the functionality of the for loop. That would help to really, so how do we derive the running sum? And that's really the main mechanism of it anyway, right? And then in the main, we simply just assign the value for our A, R, and N. This one is very short and sweet. It's one of the easier one for our lab. You know, I should have added the quadratic one. I think I did a year or two ago, and there were some challenges with it. So I omitted it because for the sake of time, and then now we do have extra time, but I will consider that for the next semester. Okay. So we worked out our spring schedule. We are submitting it tomorrow. I am teaching CIS 7 again. I'm teaching a CIS 30B, which is Python for networking. It's purely for, you know, for protocol and connectivity. As developer, or many of you are going to get into development, that's really essential, especially when you're trying to set things up from web server to other type of server like database, you know, authentication server, etc. So, and that was part of the Python certificate. So we're doing that, and I'm teaching a couple cybersecurity classes. So if you're looking to take CIS 11, that class does fill up very quick. I was teaching an LC3. I will look at some of the textbook and the exercises and see. I might switch over to ARM if I have enough time to get preparation. But LC3 is easier to learn. And some of you might argue, I see some of my students that was in CS 11 in this class, and, you know, while you kind of struggle through at the beginning, but at the end, you see the end product and you start to see all the big picture. So assembly is a little different, but yeah, take CIS 11 or, you know, or the other classes as well. Any question? If you like security, I'm teaching CS 27 online only. I will record lecture and I will release it in Canvas. So all you have to do is complete the lecture and the lab, and then I will hold the office hours to answer questions for spring. But that one is for Security Plus. For certification would come to you. Okay. Other questions? Nothing? Okay. If you're done, you can submit your lab, but it's not due until Saturday. So if you like to spend a little bit of time to get it completed, answer all the questions, that's fine. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'm gonna help answer some questions right now that's pertain to assignments and review. Don't forget that we have a homework assignment due this week or next week. Okay. This if you don't do homework assignment, I only give like, 20, 30 questions homework every so often. So if you miss the homework, you're gonna take a lower grade because it averages into your overall grade. I do take late work, however, but the assignments does lock out. I don't take, at this point, I don't take anything from the beginning because that's not fair for everybody. In about a couple of weeks, I will release your project so you can work on your project, and that's due during the final week. Okay. That should give you approximately 5 to 6 weeks to work on your project. I feel that that's ample amount of time. And also you can, get my help or assistance if you want me to look at your documentation or your program. I will be happy to do that or give you some direction on what to do. Now, in last semester, I had a couple of groups that proposed a whole new set of ideas. They were math majors and they really like do programs for math, and so they did. And they implemented interface and everything. It ended up more challenging, to get the final product at the end for them, but they learned so much more in the process. Yes, you can implement graphical user interface, but it's not required. And I can point you to some of the library that you can use, but you will have to, I won't teach that because this is not a pure, C++ class. It's a class that's incorporating programming with mathematics. So, but I can point you to some areas where you can look at that if you like. And definitely, uh, the interface is very useful, especially when you get into development, like if you wanted to get into game development or stuff like that. Okay, so you can use, since we talk about it, you can use Qt. And then if you look for C++ UI, okay, if you go to qt.io, they have their own IDE, and you should watch their tutorial in order to start working on this, but this is one of the, so it has a very large library for 2D, 3D. It's used for C++ programming, for graphical user interface, a lot of different things. But now I'm going to warn you, if you get the complete library, when you download this, it's going to be about 50 gigs. It's huge. It takes up like a big chunk of your hard drive. So if you don't have that much space on your hard drive, possibly just looking at the sub part of the library, or not get the entire library, because if you do, and this takes a little bit of time to download, even when I did this, even on 5G, that took a while. So just to let you know. Okay, any question? If you love C++, now is time to expand in your skill, right? Okay, all right, you can type your name into the chat. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to teach CIS11. I love CIS11, even though some students don't like it. But if I don't see you after this, have a good weekend. And now I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the review questions, or going back to the notes, and show you how you can solve number 10 on the review question. Okay.
Professor,
Yes.
I had a question about the class project.
Uh-huh.
Is it going to be in teams?
It can. This class, I'm open to options. So I let the student choose whether they want to be in team or not. And I will show you how you can create your team. I will share with you some of the tools that you can use in your team. For this class, I don't require a team. So if you want to work with maybe 1 or 2 other people in the class, I'm totally fine with that. If you don't want to work with another person, that's fine. But I'm going to tell you this though. when I do the project survey at the end, where I believe, because assessment is important to self-evaluate and evaluate other people's performance. You can learn a lot by doing self-evaluation. So I give an evaluation at the end, and every single time, every semester, when I read that section, it's always the student that did it on their own. They always complain that they should have done it with another person, because it ended up being a lot more than what they could handle. Some of them said that they didn't, their final product is not what they wanted it to be, because they just didn't have the manpower just to go through and fix some of the things. Okay. But that's, your project is aimed to improve over time. So I'm going to leave it up to you whether you choose to do it in teams or not. And from now until maybe week 10 or 11, when the project is released, talk to some of your classmates, use Zoom chat, maybe find someone, and I will open up that session that week, and so that way you guys can create your team or join teams.
Will it be very similar for last semester for CIS11? How we like did groups and stuff like that online?
Yeah, so I if you choose to do group, what will happen is you can set up your own group in the people functionality of Canvas. What I have to do too is I got to control some of that, because when the student did that first, it locks it into a certain mode on the assignment, and it just made my life so miserable at that point. But yeah, so I'm going to modify the configuration, but yes, you can sign up for your group. And then what I can show you is to how to use Microsoft Teams, which is, I think it's really cool to use now. You can, link everything to OneDrive, and that way everybody sees everything. So you're not all over the place with all these different apps. But yeah, you can use other apps to communicate. The challenge with the team in the past is that they said that sometimes team members don't respond, or they take a long time to respond. That was one of the
Yeah,
things.
that was one of my problems as well. Like I was just like, so are we doing this?
So
And then later.
So in the last couple semester, I kind of, when I finish all the lecture for all the chapters, I usually just use the time to help with the project. I think this semester, I'm still going to require student to attend, so that way I can use breakout Zoom room to make sure that you do what you need to do in the team. So I have to I have to manage the team. I was, what I want the student to experience is that you also need to take an initiative in project management to make sure, like stand on people to make sure that they get it done. And it kind of teaches you the skills in leadership and, project management, to really looking at timeline and people. So I will touch on that, and yeah, I will use breakout Zoom room, where I would put you in, if you had selected your team, you can select your room and you can go in there and you can work on it during class time. So that way it's, it's productive for everybody. So that's what I'm going to do this semester. That's different than the last semester. I learn every single time on how to make it better, right? And I'm just like you. I hone my skills by doing it the second time, the third time, the fourth time, and so forth. Okay. All right. With that said, let's go and talk about the question that you had, Mario, on the kids, right? The probability.
Yeah, probability for number 10.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes. I'm just trying to figure out how I got it or how we got it. I was like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Hold on one second. It was a while back. I know some of this. You guys have a lot of different type of classes and different things. So yeah, I did something similar to that. So I'm not gonna solve that problem, but I'm gonna go back to one of the problems that we've
No,
done.
I don't
That's
mind
very
that if we do the problem that we did on our notes, so I can do it on this one. I would
okay.
appreciate it. Yeah, I believe it was, I think it was chapters, no, let me look at it really quick. I was looking at it not that long ago just to try to figure it out myself. Let's see. I think it was not lab 6. It was assignment 6. I believe, I'm not sure, but I'll look at it right now.
Yeah, so the assignment 6 was, I'm looking at the assignment 6 right now. I'm trying to find the questions that's close to that. That was the cards, and I think it's in 7. Oh no, 7 was last week and it was linear. Yeah, you're right. Either 5 or 6. Because chapter 8 was broken into 2 parts. Oh, yeah, that was the choose one, correct? Yeah, that's right. I'm trying to go back now. I see it, yeah. Yeah, so go to unit 5 assignment.
Yeah, I just found it. I'm looking for the problem now. Yeah, I
Okay.
see some of them
It's
very
at
similar to it.
it's like number 3 in unit 5 assignments. It's very close to it.
Oh
Here,
yeah.
I'll show
Okay, I see it.
I'll show you now on screen share so that way you can I walk you through it. Let me zoom in real quick. So for those of you who are trying to solve number 10 on the homework, so number 3 in unit 5 is very close to it. Okay. So this one, number 3, it says a first grade teacher wants to select 4 boys and 4 girls to do the talent show in a class of 20 students, 10 boys and 10 girls. So we're choosing 4 boys out of the 10 boys and the 4 girls out of the 10 girls. Okay. So we would use the choose formula. So we choose 4 out of 10. So you do factorial of 10. That's the number of boys or girl. Divided by factorial of 4, which is choose, right? We pick 4 of each. So now we're just going to calculate the boys or the girls first, and then we're going to use the product law. Multiply it by 10 minus 4, the difference factorial. Okay. So we conclude that that would be 210 ways the teacher can select 4 boys or 4 girls. So once you have the 210, that only represent one group, that group or this group, right? Since we're talking about boys and girls, we have to use the product law because we're having multiple selection or multiple options at this point. So we have to take the 210 times it by 210 again because it's the same exact number of in the choice, 4 and 4 out of the 10 and 10. So if you do see a different number, like let's say that I have to choose 3 boys and 4 girls, then you have to calculate them separately and then multiply them. Okay. So once I get the, yes.
I also understood that, I tried to plug it in and I couldn't get 210 as the answer. I don't know if I'm just plugging in my calculator wrong. I was just having trouble doing it.
Okay. So I'm choosing, so factorial of 10 divided by 4 factorial times 6 factorial, right? So you would first do 10 factorial, then divided by, you have to divide it by, and then use the parentheses. And that's when a lot of the students have issue, is that if you don't use the parentheses in the calculator, it's gonna start, because it's order, right? Like in programming, you have to apply the parentheses. So divided by 4 factorial times 6 factorial. So by this point, once I have the parentheses, I would do 4 factorial, okay, times 10 minus 4 is 6 factorial, close parentheses, and equal. Okay.
Okay, I'm trying right now because I'm getting 720.
Okay. Yeah, 720 because you didn't have the parentheses, and it's gonna throw it off. It's gonna try to multiply before. So just do 10 factorial divided by, and then open your parentheses.
Oh, I see. I wasn't putting the parentheses between the 10 and the
Yeah.
4 factorial.
Yeah,
Oh my
after
goodness.
the
I was there.
division, that's okay. That happens every semester. You're not the only one. Many students, have issue with that because, looking at the formula when you just punching it in sometime because, you have to operate the bottom and then divide it from the top. So that's why you have to use the parentheses. So 4 factorial times 6 factorial, and then close the parentheses and then press equal. There you go.
Okay, and I'm gonna try it before I get it, and then I think
Yeah.
I'll be good.
Yeah. So the other one, all you have to do is do this, right? So you have what, still 10 student group, right? 10 boys and 10 girls, and you have to choose 3, right? Or is it 20? Let me go to, I think I downloaded it. Let me double check. I'll walk you through the first part so you can see. That was number 10. Okay, yeah, 20. So you have your C, you choose 23 out of the 20. Okay, so you would have 20 factorial divided by, right, 3 factorial times 20 minus 3 factorial. Okay, and if you use it like I have, so this right here is like 17, right? 17 factorial. It's the same. Okay. And that would be, so once you have this, that would only give you the boys or just the girls, right? Then you would have to multiply it by itself again to get boys and girls. So after that, you would have to do you use product law to get boys and girls. Okay. That help?
Yeah, okay, let me, oh, I see what I'm doing. Okay, what I'm doing first is I'm dividing the 20 with the 3 first, but it's actually 3 times the
Yeah.
17 first. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it one more time, and because I'm still doing the first problem, number 3 from I'm trying to get 210. And I just realized what I was doing. I was dividing the 10 first.
Yeah, don't divide first. So get the factorial, right? So it needs to multiply it out first and then you divide. And when you plug it into the calculator, you gotta make sure that you plug it in this way. Factorial of 10 divided by open parentheses, factorial of 4 times factorial of 6, close parenthesis, and then you will get 210. Questions? Okay. And in this one, you don't want to use 20 because we have specific information about boys and the girls. Because if you use 20, that would just be both. We are selecting specific from specific group. Okay.
Is it okay if I share you my screen?
Yeah,
I'm
one
not,
second.
I'm still not getting it. What kind of
Okay.
calculator are you using? Are you using scientific?
Yeah, use the scientific mode.
Mhm.
And then let me enable the security for share for you guys. Okay, you're good now.
Let me see. I'm trying to remember how to do it again. Let's see. Hi, non-video participants. Oh, it's bottom right, right?
Mhm.
Share screen. There you go.
Just click on the green button. There you go. Yeah, so what you're doing there is it's dividing and then multiplying. So that's why it's huge. Clear it.
Okay.
Okay, put in 10 factorial. Okay, divide it. So divide button and then open parenthesis. Okay, 4 factorial times 6
6 factorial.
factorial. Close parentheses equal.
I wouldn't put in the equal sign. It's just a
Yeah,
long day.
yeah, I know. Yeah, so you had it all right last time. And
Yeah.
even okay, using the double parentheses on the bottom is fine too. Because
Okay.
you have the subtraction. Yeah, so that's okay.
Oh
Okay.
gosh. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're
Sorry
welcome. No
about that.
problem. I hope
I'm-
I'm glad that I cleared that up. No
yeah, I think I
problem.
can do the rest now. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I think I'm good. All right. Have a nice day.
All
Okay.
right. You
Bye.
too.
Thanks.
Bye. Any other questions? Did you miss anything in the lab? Yes, David.
Yeah, I guess more of a general question. I was looking at the cybersecurity video that you put up,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess I'm curious on getting the cybersecurity analyst degree since I'm
Yeah.
going in the military for an operational analyst. So I just kind of wanted to see if just getting that would be, I guess, sufficient to become more of an analyst. Like I'm not really looking to become an actual like cybersecurity technician, because in the military as an officer, you really not,
Oh,
you
okay.
really aren't the ones that are like pretty much hacking. Those are the enlisted, and the officers are the ones who oversee the whole operation. So I figure as an analyst or cybersecurity analyst, that will allow me to conduct that kind of overseeing or managerial role.
Yeah. So what branch are you in now?
Air Force.
Okay, that's perfect because they do a lot. They have a lot of expansion with cybersecurity. Not that the other branch don't, but Air Force takes the lead in that. So yes, in many cases, if you go through the regular college, university, traditional degree approach, um, in any sense, I'm not only just looking at the military. Many times they want you to have a bachelor degree for the analyst position, but in the security area, especially when you're already in the branch itself, like Air Force, what you can do if you're already operating in that, you're working in that, what you can do is you can expand on it by just having the skill sets. And with this certificate, what it does is it gives you not just hands-on, but we prepare you for certification. So in the analyst area, you're looking at more than most people think of like security as ethical hacking, but that's really a risk analysis area. That's really what it is. So not only that, you're looking at logs, you're looking at applications, you're looking at different areas as an analyst for in the security area. So I do have a couple of class that address that specifically, and it's looking at from the context, the concept context, and then applying it to the technical area, like what kind of tools do we use when we come across this, when you're auditing this type of system, or when you're analyzing the network, what kind of tools do you use? Because it's such a big span of there's like different aspect in security. So for you, yes, I think that will be a good move to potentially climb up that ladder and overlooking people and have that management capability compared to the technician level. And sometimes you might not jump into it right away. I know the industry, you kind of have to work your way up from, you know, and sometimes you might not even want to go the analyst route. You want to go to the architect route, which means that you would design more of a solutions, and that would be analyzed by the analyst and then implemented by the technician. So
Okay,
that's even at the higher level.
yeah, that's kind of what they're telling me that's going on because my my major is data theory or data science, and
Which
that's
it
a
has a lot of statistic.
yeah, and
It's
I'm
perfect.
hoping to transfer into UCLA data
Okay.
theory. If not, UCR has the data science one.
Yeah,
But that's why I figured I'm getting the cybersecurity analyst because my
perfect.
commander told me that typically they put people who do data theory, who do well, the operational analysts. Most of them are in the cyber warfare division. So
Yes.
I wanted to go in there, I guess, more prepared because if I'm going in, leading people, I'm kind of like, what I need to kind of know what's going on. So
Yeah. So there's two different take in that, right? Like that degree itself. Some school would teach it under the math department where it address a lot of the statistic, and then they might have like a couple classes that are tied to the technical side, right? Like Python and stuff like that. R,
yes,
okay?
that's the thing that kind of got me thinking, and since you brought it up, because UCLA has it with the math department,
Mhm.
and UCR has it blended in with computer science.
Science.
So it
So,
seems a little
yeah,
bit more on the computer science part. So I'm kind of
right.
torn. I'm kind of like, what should I do at UCR?
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of
So yeah, and some school they would touch on it in the computer science side where it's more of the big data side, right?
yeah,
Like looking at how to, so you now in cybersecurity, if you have strong statistical skill, that's a plus. And coming from the computer science side is also a plus. It doesn't mean that if you go to UCLA and get a statistic degree, that statistic based degree, it's still data science, that it doesn't, I mean, it's not going to affect it in any way. And then in some, if you're looking at private organizations, sometimes they have alumni hiring alumni. So if they graduate from UCLA, then that plugs you in. But it doesn't really matter. I think that the whole point in this is either degree is going to give you the overall foundation. So if you want to continue your career, even post Air Force, right? Let's say that you wanted to be a contracted individual civilian down the line or work for private entity, you still be able to do okay. And I think computer science has a little bit more edge in the case that you are exposed more to the technical and you have to keep maintaining that over time, in my opinion, but I could be biased. um, but I see a lot of use for it, by, because when you get to graduate degree level, you have to take statistic courses that's very much more advanced than what you even seen at the bachelor level. So if you want to climb that ladder down the line, you want to consider, oh, okay, I'll get a master degree in this. And by that point, you're gonna analyze either way. So you have to take statistic classes, advanced statistic in your master area. So um, you know, that is gonna be either way. I think it's gonna benefit if UCR is gonna give you, and that will be closer for you, then you can wait and the pros and the cons on that. But as far as cybersecurity, the more programming skills you have, the more technical skills you have, the plus. Because then you would be able to adapt that into practices for everyday use, system use, and for Air Force, that's warfare is essential, not just to look at things statistically, but UCLA is a wonderful school. So if you can get in, that's a plus too. Okay.
Yeah, that's, that's another thing. I guess I'm trying to be realistic. Like, hopefully, I get into UCLA. But last time I checked, apparently data theory has like a 50% acceptance rate. I guess not a lot of people are going into that field. So I'm
And
putting
yeah, and because it's math heavy and people, sometimes people kind of stay away from that possibly. I know that UC Berkeley, when they sent us the information about that, they actually sent some of, it's like it's more computer science based. If you check Cal Poly Pomona, it's under computer science as well. And then UCI, it's under statistics.
yeah,
So yeah, so it's kind of like a different take on, and internally how the university organizes their department and how they approach that degree. So what I recommend is to take a look at each of the courses, and all of this is public information. You can go to their catalog and it gives you a blurb, and all of the courses that they submit to state for approval, it will tell you exactly what kind of content it should be, what kind of books they recommend to use. Community college or university level, it's all the same for public school.
oh
So
yeah.
I yeah.
Sorry, I did look it up, and I saw most of the classes for data theory at UCLA. They're under the stats
Mhm.
acronym, I guess. Uh,
Yeah,
so it does seem to be like overall. I guess that's why they called it data theory instead of data science. It does seems
yeah.
to be revolve a lot of around the theory itself, which it still seems really interesting. And I saw that they put a little video on it. But then again, touching on back on what you said, it does seem like UCR, like they do have like, okay, yeah, take computer science courses like on data mining, on big data, on database theory, database. It
Mhm.
feels more like they're blending it with use of computer science.
Mhm.
So that's
And
how
what
I'm.
you're doing, and if you want to continue doing this with the Air Force, like for in the cyber division, having that technical background is going to be strong going into it.
Yeah,
Analytical
that's
is good. You still get the job, but it's that's going to give you a leg up no matter what.
yeah. My plan is to. I say that now, but we'll see. But I plan to do like a career military. So I'm trying to get
Mhm.
to like lieutenant colonel or colonel like in 15 years. Um,
Good.
and so I do plan on getting like the masters and the PhDs, and they'll pay for that.
Oh, perfect. If
So
you can get your education at that level, my supervisor, she's former Navy, and she was in the Navy for 20 years, and she climbed up the ladder when she was in the Navy. And so yeah, and it did a lot, where she started it, her career built up. There was a lot of accolades that she got throughout, and they pay for most of it. So I think that's great. If they support you, and if you're able to contribute to the country, and they give back to you as education, and that's something that you're always going to have, and that's good. So I say take it and do it, and that's if that's your plan, and go through with it, and that will be great. Your retirement will be great. You can even consult. You can work for DoD down the line if you want. So I mean, even at that level, you work with DoD. So that's fantastic.
yeah, because when I think about cybersecurity, um, I just I don't know. I just see myself in the military capacity because I have no interest whatsoever to I don't know like secure Facebook or Google or like Netflix accounts. Like I don't care about Twitter and stuff like that. So
Right.
so I feel like in the military I feel like okay, at least I'm defending the country's computer systems, like the supply and
Yeah.
logistics
It's
and
a
stuff like
greater
that. So
purpose, definitely. And not everybody can do that. And if you already have a way to be able to contribute and build your career in that path with the Air Force, I say do it.
yeah,
Many people try to get in, and even if they're in the Air Force, they don't necessarily mean that they could get into that level. Regardless, there's some. So one, I knew there was a high school student that I worked with when I was at college to the desert, and she wanted to go into the Air Force specifically for the cybersecurity part, and she tried. She has good grades, But at the end, afterwards, she was not able to get into the security division.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why. I mean, it seems like her GPA was great, and everything, because I was working in a community college, and we wanted to work with some of the high school for dual enrollment, and I coached Cyber Patriot, and she was one of the ones that competed. So I coached her, and I really plugged her in for a lot of things. And, so when I left, that's before she started college, or she wanted to join the military before she started college. So that way they can supplement some of that tuition for her. But I follow up with her down the line, and yeah, she was not able to get to the cyber division, unfortunately. I was hoping that she would. But yeah, that's good for you. You already have that path. Just build on it. So yes, you can get a certificate, and with that, if you wanted to obtain, if I know they pay for also industry certification, and then they have their own. And then we recently communicated with some of the branches about how we wanted to use map. So it's a way that we can map military courses to our curriculum that we created.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so some of that, like if you already been trained on something, you can bring your transcript and see the counselors, and then if they don't know, they will come back, because once we have, because all we have to do is enter into the state system, and that state system will correlate certain course that you took with the college course. And you started to see a lot now. I think at university level, they've been doing this for a long time. In my previous job, I worked for a private entity, and we did it for a long time. So yeah, so if you have some training that's like, let's say, networking or something like that, that you felt like that would match up with the class, you can provide us with the transcript, and then we'll find a way to make sure that you earn the credit for that if it matches up. Okay.
Oh, okay. And then that also counts a little bit as a prerequisite, right? Because
Yeah. And so if it fulfills certain prerequisite, that will be great, and then you can jump into the course, because it's no point for a student to retake something that he already or she already attempted in the training, or something like that. And that kind of, I felt like, if I have to repeat something that I've already done or I know well, and I've done it through the experience, either with military or at my job, then I feel discouraged, because it's just a waste of my time.
yeah, because I was
Yeah,
noticing that like
so
I did like N
yeah.
plus and Cisco, but we're
Uh-huh.
talking about almost like 15 years ago. So it's
Yeah, but sometimes you have to learn the updated information. But
yeah, I know
but you
systems are way different
grandfathered
now.
in, right? You don't have to retest.
Oh,
So what we can do is we can take some of that, because IP addresses hasn't changed,
yeah.
stuff like that. So if you have some of that valid experience and certification, then bring that in. If the counselors, if they don't know me, then here, I'll drop in a link for a CTE counselor. So oh, but you guys go through the VA counselors, or no? Do you go through, what kind of counseling do you receive at this college?
Right now I'm not even going through the whole VA thing. I guess I was gonna look into it when I got to the university, I guess. But
Okay,
maybe I
but
should. But
but before you go to the university, if you ever need counseling, I know of a couple from CTE. They're fantastic. They work with me all the time. I just received an email from them yesterday. So hold on, let me get the website up. And
oh,
this
and by the way,
is-
are you teaching any of these? Oh, I'm gonna be taking 30A. Yeah, the Python one. Yeah, I'm gonna be
yes,
taking
I'm
that
doing
with you on Wednesday.
30A. Yeah, and that's online only.
Yeah.
So I record lecture, and
Mm.
then you can watch the lecture, and then I go through the programming. So yes, I'm teaching 30A, and in the Python programming one, it has 5 classes in different areas of Python. But yeah, so I will be teaching 30A.
Are you not
Uh,
teaching any of the cybersecurity stuff during the winter, or that's not your plan?
we don't have too many offering during the winter. They ask us to do a little bit of a cutback this time. And then so in the spring, I'm doing CIS 41, which is risk assessment analysis. It has ethical hacking component along with just overall network and system risk analysis. So it has like bits and pieces from all different area, and then how to assess risk from like, you know, the concept theory base, where how do we calculate that, how do we look at that, what kind of things do we need to address, how we can translate that into policy and implementations, and
Okay.
then where do you go to look at the framework, like, you know, like NIST framework, how can you implement the risk management from the framework. So it has some management concept with it, and even risk management is such a big area that a lot of the times you spend talking about it in graduate school or even at PhD level, right? Because we can never remove we can never reduce 100% risk, but we can reduce it down to what is accepted. And so acceptance level is all different for all different areas of businesses. Um, so 1 second, I had it. Trying to find CTE counseling for you here. The two people that you can talk to is Ted Jackson or Belinda Flores. Belinda is great. Ted is also great. They do they work part-time, so they have like alternate days, like Monday and Wednesday is one of them, Tuesday and Thursday is the other one, and then I think
Okay.
Friday they shared. So they also do like counseling classes. So I dropped I'm gonna drop a link into that to chat for you so you can
Okay.
see. That's a website. You can go in and schedule the appointment to see them, or there's their contact information, and then it shows the schedule. So you can I recommend bringing your certifications or information and share it with them, and then let them know that you already talked to me, and if they have questions they can talk to me about credit classes and how that would translate to what you have taken or earned in the past. Okay.
I'm trying to see how there's a way to prove it, because it's been such a, like I said, it's been over like 15 years, and I'm like,
Yeah, have you keep up with it? Do you
oh no,
because
not at all.
yeah, so with CompTIA, we are a CompTIA partner, but we don't have we can't give student voucher right now. What we can do is we can, you know, give you some training and stuff for if you want to retest. But I have an upcoming Certiport thing where it's an institution license where you can test. It's for Microsoft version. So if you wanted to do, you know, the network for Microsoft, networking for Microsoft, you can do that. You can, it's like equivalent to the Network Plus or even maybe at that level.
Oh, the
Okay.
what's it called? The Microsoft Certified Professional or
Network
something?
technician.
Never heard of it?
No,
Okay.
yeah, it's under the associate level.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like, you know, network essential or something like that, or network fundamentals or something like that.
Oh yeah,
And
certification
then they
changed a
have
lot
to,
since I remember.
yeah, if you go to their certification information,
Mm.
if you click on, I think it was the CTA one, it it expands, and underneath that they have like Python for beginners and some of the other areas like security and network. I know CompTIA is highly recognized. It's just that we can't give student voucher that way, but if the military is going to pay for you to recertify, I say recertify.
Oh, so okay. Well, now I'm kind of like, so there's different types of the same certification, or
Mhm.
because there's a CompTIA one and like a Microsoft one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so, but many people in the industry recognize CompTIA, and they also recognize Microsoft. So they will tell you, oh, well, if you don't have this, but if you have this, it's okay, right? If you, like, not everybody is Cisco certified, so you can have, Network Plus, Security Plus, and or you can have the CCENT or CCNA, right? But doesn't always mean that, you know, no. So yeah, you don't have to have specific like for all the time. You can just choose one or the other.
Oh, okay.
Microsoft is not that popular in that area, but they just started launching some of the little ones because, you know, they found that, you know, that's a better way for the people to kind of build their skills. Because if you look at the even at the associate level for Microsoft with the Windows servers, you have to take like 3 tests to get that certification, kind of like Cisco. So
Okay.
yeah, so
Oh.
you have to do like you have to do the Active Directory, and then, you know, so the complete server with all the sub areas, you have to pass those tests in order to get that certification. And people found it's very challenging, and also it costs a lot. So what they start doing is they start doing more of the smaller general tests exam that would tie. So we do have access to the Microsoft one for Certiport, and I'll share that with you. It's funded through our Perkins Fund. So
Okay.
once I get the license, students can sign up to take it.
Oh,
Okay.
nice. And I'm trying to see if I remember this one correctly. I heard some of the enlisted had like the SSCP.
Yeah. So that's through ISC squared.
Oh, so it's a whole different
Uh,
organization.
Yeah, let me show you. That's
wow.
a whole different vendor. And if you already have the experience, I'll drop in the, so I'll give you the link. So if they are associates, that means that they haven't had the 5+ years experience. So if you have more than 5 years experience, you can test for the CISSP. And CISSP is recognized in the industry, especially for security management level. So when you get to the management level, but the associates level, the SSCP, yeah, you can get that, you know, when you have about 1 to 3 years experience. You can take the test, and what they'll do is they'll give you the associate level.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, wow. So
And
it's a,
and under the, it's a pricey test. So, and you have to maintain it, meaning that either you retest or you have to maintain the education credit. So if you keep taking training and updating, you will, I studied for the CISSP when I was finishing my doctorate degree, and then I started working more, and I just never came back to it. But if you get the CISSP, usually the people who has that, they would get into like CIO, CTO level, or executive level. Usually they require CISSP. The associate
okay.
level is like if you wanted, or like even security architect or engineer, cybersecurity engineer, usually sometimes they ask for CISSP.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it
So
does
if
sound
they,
like I should be aiming for these then, since like I mentioned, I'm hoping to get up to the like
yeah,
the
so
kernel
there's
level.
different areas. If you look at it, there's like cloud security, there's the CISSP is like management, operation, and leadership. There's the SSCP is the security administration. That's what a lot of your colleagues have, right?
Oh, okay.
And then you got the CAP is for authorization, that deals more with data. And then you got the software security, which is the CSSLP. So that would be for like software engineer that works that specifically for the security area. So you would
Oh,
see some of that. And then they have healthcare. So they have many different sub area.
wow.
But if you want, yeah, the SSCP is probably more of a direct path after your bachelor degree or during your bachelor degree.
Okay. Yeah. So I
Okay.
guess I have to look at all of this and see exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
so
I guess
it's
I'll find out what they require for promotions. Because
yeah.
besides that, you gotta have like 4 or 6 years and that.
Oh, well, you know, yeah. So this if the military will require to validate your experience with this entity, yeah, they don't just give you the test, they actually verify that you have the required experience.
Oh.
So see, security analyst, system engineer, database administrator, security administrator. So at this point, you are in the management usually, or even, you know, at least analyst. So that's the SSCP.
Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like something. Yeah, that I should be going for. And again, like, well, they want like 4 years to be a captain, and then it's like you have to do at least eight to 10,
Yeah.
and then you go to major, and
Mhm.
so yeah, we'll see when it goes up to that. But it does look like I'll need to get these. I'm just not sure if they actually require these certifications, and they pretty much teaches us
No,
everything.
but
Um,
if they support you, if they tell you that if you can acquire it, so that way you can, I don't know, get either promotion or maybe better pay or different areas of your responsibility, possibly. Usually it relates to responsibility, right? And with
yeah,
that, sometimes that will escalate your scale level, right? Because I know all my former students that were in the military, they educated me on that, like your pay based on the scale. And then, so,
yeah,
you know,
they add on the bonuses with like certifications,
Mhm.
and they're giving me like a proficiency because bilingual, and I'm taking up Korean, and then I guess we're getting attacked by the Koreans over the internet, so we're like,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh, very cool.
well, we got Korean, Russian, and Chinese, and they told me to
Mhm.
pick one of those. I'm like, oh, I'll just take Korean.
Oh, very cool. So, you know, that will give you the leverage. So I say, yeah, ask them the questions. I'm pretty sure that they would usually support this because that's going to prolong your career with them.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just kind of like unfortunate, like for the enlisted people, they stopped they stopped sponsoring the certifications, and they're just doing it for the officers right now. So I'm kind of like,
okay.
oh, that's kind of messed up. Well, good thing I'm an officer, but it's kind of messed up for the enlisted where they had to pay it out of pocket.
Well, then it gives them an incentive to get get into a higher rank, right? Don't you think? I think that's more of a to push them those people to, you know, maybe get a degree so that way they can move up or something like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Um,
Okay.
okay, no,
All right.
well, I really appreciate thank you for explaining this. Let's see.
Yeah,
Oh,
no problem. Anytime, drop me an email if you have, you know, questions.
yeah,
Okay.
no, definitely, definitely. I just wanted to see how can I best prepare and navigate through the I guess the cybersecurity field, because I know it's changing so much, and
Yeah, so fast.
yeah, like the things like I'd love to like learn and just keep doing that. So I figured, hey, uh, and I'm in the field of computers, it's pretty much gonna force me to stay up to date because you just stop for like a couple of months, and it's like a whole new different type of architecture comes out for like processor. So
Yeah.
like I remember what like the SD RAM, and now it's just but that was back like 15 years, and then I try to build
Yeah.
a computer nowadays. I'm like, oh wait a minute, we're DDR4 now. So
Yeah.
I had
Well,
a
yeah. Well, on video RAM, it's DDR6 now.
DDR. Okay, yeah,
So
see, I'm already behind. I thought it was
yeah,
DDR5 on.
five is sold, but yeah, now I start seeing graphic
DDR.
cards with DDR6 now.
Wow.
So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, see, I'm still a little behind. I still haven't caught up a bit.
yeah, because I was looking at processor because I just bought like the Ryzen 5 not too long ago. Now it's like Ryzen 9 AMD just came out.
Oh
And
wow.
so, well, I mean, they drop in price. It not just come out. It came out a little bit ago, but yeah, it
Mm,
dropped in price. So it's like about the equivalent to the i9. But
mm.
you know, you're looking at like major, so many cores, and it's great. So yeah, I love hardware, so I can totally get into that. My mind would just take me to that.
And is
But
that
anyway,
not that you brought
yeah.
that up? Is that CIS 11, the architecture assembly, or
No, yeah.
oh,
So 11 is about programming at the processor level. So low level programming. Assembly language is low level.
oh, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
instructions. Like, you know, you basically you program simple instruction at register.
Is that does that have anything to do with like logic gates and
Yes. Yes.
oh,
Yes.
because they told us about this
So
in the military about Operation San Juan
uh-huh.
when they attacked was it the Iranian nuclear site,
Mhm.
and they did it to attack the enrichment facility, the centrifuges. So
Mhm.
it was they programmed the virus, and I think the very basic language, I think it was ARM or like uh, the programming language
The code was floating. There's tutorial video on it on YouTube.
really,
Yeah.
I should check that out.
Yeah, the code is floating around still,
Mm.
and it changed over time. But yeah, I remember the
So
time.
is that kind of like the what I guess
Mhm.
CIS then kind of talks about like the whole that
Yeah,
the
there.
basic programming, I suppose, like language
Yeah,
to
just
deal with
in
this.
different. Yeah, just instructions like add, subtract. So your computer, everything is in binary, and then so it just move things in and out and be able to simply just add. Usually, just add, right?
Oh, wow.
So how that all your at the higher level, all of that breaks down into just calculation. So yeah, so you will have to understand a little bit of gates. But assembly language, there are different type of assembly language. ARM is common, right? There's the old one, and Microsoft uses MASM, Microsoft ASM, and kind of like C++ with Python or Java has different, there's different registers used. There's different ways, there's different instructions on how, like, kind of think of it like commands, but different instructions on how you can tell the system what to do.
Okay.
But yeah, you can implement loop and everything with it, but assembly been around for a long time. Yes, at that level, because if you understand at that level, higher language seems so much easier. So
Oh, okay. So maybe I should probably do that because I have a hard time. I took Java with you, 18A. I think it was like
mhm.
last couple semesters ago. And I got stuck like towards the end. I think it was with the project. I just couldn't. Oh yeah, I had a problem with arrays. I don't know why. I just have a hard time picturing them and kind of run it. So yes, I got messed up with Java and
Yeah, so when you do Python, some just a language, so and it's easier working with lists in Python compared to Java. But yeah,
oh, okay. Yeah,
C
I
Java,
heard
C++, Java, so close.
I heard Python was supposed to be like an easier language, I suppose, and C++ was
It's
more
just
for.
syntax is simpler. Yeah, you don't
Okay.
have as many things. Like, how Java, when it goes into main, it's like a big thing for the main.
Yeah.
Yes, Python, you don't have to have, but there is a main. It's just, when you call a function, you just type the name of it,
Oh, okay.
and that's it. Yeah, you don't have to put it into a certain section. It's just like at the bottom, and that's it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you like it. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
you're welcome. You too. Bye bye.